Well, hello and welcome to Tea Talk. We are here today with a wonderful show that I know you're going to enjoy. I have some guests that I have known for a long time. And as you know, the month of June, we set aside to honor our Black men. We want them to know that we are so proud of them, and I want to bring them on for them to show and talk about their life so that you can get some encouragement and some direction for the men in your life. And if you're a man, get some direction from this young man. He is retired, but he is full of wisdom and knowledge and life. And so I want you to welcome today Brother Marvin Coleman. Brother Marvin, we welcome you to Tea Talk today as we honor you as a African-American Black man who has been successful in life. And when I say successful, it means that you have your relationship with God intact. You have your relationship with your family. You take care of your family, your children, and your grandchildren. As a matter of fact, I know that you're on your way, or you already made it to Florida with the grandkids and the children to have a family vacation. And when you can do all of those things and work really, really hard, like I know you've done all these years, and then retire and enjoy the fruit of your labor, I want the people to know you and to meet you and see if they can glean some information from you on how to do it right. So let's welcome to Tea Talk, Mr. Marvin Coleman. Hello, Mr. Marvin.
Thank you for the invitation, and I'm so glad to be a part of this. I'm being a part of the First Met family, so this is just an extension of my life that I want to share with my First Met friends and family, and also to anyone that's listening to this program. Thank you so much.
Well, we're just honored to have you, and we just want the world to see what God has done through your life with your family and your career. One of the things that I've always instilled in my sons is hard work. You know, get an education, get a career. And you know, there's a difference between a job and a career. A job you can get every day, quit that one, move on, move on. You can have 50 jobs in your lifetime and never have a career. So tell me about yourself. I know you're married. Can you tell me a little bit about your family?
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, Geraldine Coleman. She's my wife. Hello, wife. We've been married for 51 years. It'll be 51 years, as a matter of fact, on August the 29th, 51 years. And she is my high school sweetheart. And we started in high school, of course. And we have now 2 children, 3 grandchildren. And Jerry and I, we've always been, I say mobile because we grew up in South Carolina. And ever since, well, when I left high school, go to college at Tuskegee University, and she came behind me 2 years, she's 2 years junior to me. So anyway, we started off in Tuskegee, raising a family. That's where our first born, Marvin Jr. from Tuskegee, at Tuskegee University. We had him my senior year in college there. And we left Tuskegee to entered the Air Force the flying program at Reese Air Force Base, Texas. We were there for 1 year for pilot training, and then we stayed there another 4 years for I was a flight instructor at that base. And that's how I started my aviation career after leaving Tuskegee.
Well, let me ask you a question before we get too far into this airline and airplane school and all of your careers. When you were a little boy, is that what you wanted to be, an airplane pilot? Did you know when you were a little boy? How did you come to get into the Air Force or driving planes?
Yeah, that's a good question. As a matter of fact, I grew up in a rural area. And what I mean by that was there were, of course, a lot of farmers. And farmers during that time, and I don't think they do that process anymore, but for farmers, they used airplanes for fertilizing and insecticiding their fields, the crops. Mm-hmm. And little boy out in the, at my back in the backyard, I see these airplanes flying over all the time, going to and from the fields, insecticiding the crops. And I just thought that was real neat. This airplane comes down real close to the ground and it climbs up. It was, to me, it was just a, I don't know, elating experience just to watch those planes. So that's why I really got, I guess, the urge to fly airplanes. I was a little boy at that time.
Wow. And so you talk about dreams. I mean, a little boy seeing an airplane, not understanding how it got up there, it stays up there, but being inquisitive and not even really thinking that, hey, I could fly that plane. But your dreams and just being exposed to what's around you. Even out in the country, you didn't say, I don't have this, I don't have that, but just look up in the sky and you saw airplanes. That is amazing. So when you
Yes.
went to school, did you actually go to school to become a pilot?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, yes, at Tuskegee, the ROTC program,
Okay.
um, I entered at Tuskegee, I entered the ROTC program, and there were two ways to do it. You could be a non-flying officer or a flying officer. And because I had those dreams, my desires to fly, that it went into the flying program. So that's where it started. I guess it was the person that motivated me, even at Tuskegee, was his name was Chief Anderson. Chief Anderson, if you probably know about the Tuskegee Airmen, Chief
Yeah.
Anderson, he was a flight instructor that sent the Tuskegee Airmen. He trained all the airmen. So I was blessed and fortunate to have someone like him, the historical things that he had done for the aviation world. At that time, there were no blacks flying in the military. But the Tuskegee Airmen, they became well known because they did enter the service. So that's where I got my all the other motivation after getting to college.
So you met, first of all, you went to school. Did your mom ask if you wanted to go to school, or did she just say, this is a requirement, you're going to school? How did you end up in college? Was that just something that you wanted to do?
Now, as a matter of fact, it wasn't something I just wanted to do. As a matter of fact, I don't know, I did well in school, but I didn't really look for it as a sort of high desire to go to college as far as like for example, like the social life at a college is there, you know what I'm saying? But when I was there, I was just more interested in getting it done. In my family, we did have several teachers, school teachers in a little small town. And of course, I think I didn't have a choice. I was going to have to go whether I wanted to or not. So I received I guess, the motivation, the urgency that yeah, you going to college tomorrow because they weren't into aviation, but they were into education, not aviation, but education. This means getting a degree.
You were saying you were raised by your grandmother, and you had uncles and aunts that were like brothers and sisters that did they encourage you to go to college? You said you weren't really sure about that. I know growing up on a farm, usually the back in that day, they expected the boys to go and work the farm and become farmers. But was it your grandmother's idea or your mother's idea that you would go to college, or a counselor? Who encouraged you?
Yes, my encouragement did come from my grandmother, but also to like say when I speak of like those are her children, we my aunts and uncles, right?
Right.
But they wanted me not to like maybe would necessarily work the life they work on the farm, but we go away and go to school and get education. I was saying when I said I didn't have a necessary desire just to go to college, but desire to fly airplanes. That's what started it, and also too to get into the aviation program. That was my motivation to go to college. It's like a football player or a basketball player. They may not look at it going to college just to get education, but there's a career that they want to play
They want to play
basketball. Oh,
football. Right. Okay, I
I
got it.
wanted to fly. I want to fly airplanes. I want to be a
Yeah,
fighter
you want
pilot.
to fly airplanes, and you couldn't do it by learning, staying there on the farm. Well,
That's
okay, great. So once you got to college, okay, so family is important. Family encourage you. They want that baby to make it. They were working in the fields, but they say you can make it, and you have the dream and desire to fly planes. So that kind of got that spark under you. So once you went to college, and I'm sure, I mean, very few Black people fly planes, or that's not a career we typically see when you look in a group of African American men. You don't see a lot of pilots, people that fly planes. So, was it hard?
Well, it was hard, but you mentioned something too. Also the motivation that I had in college was my wife. She's always, and she knew that I really wanted to fly airplanes. And like for instance, I can remember the times I've told her, this is after we left Tuskegee to get into my first phase of flying, because the concentration I had to do to prepare myself for a mission day after day after day. I mean, she told me, she said, Marvin, you just go and go to the room and study. And Marvin Jr. already had Marvin by this time, my second year, my last year in college. And she would take the baby and go away and just give me all the check, very concentrated. And also, too, I had to contend with we're talking about 1988 time frame, racism. I mean, it was a big thing at Reese Air Force Base. And because it was like it was, there's one short story I will tell. It's not a long story, just to mention the fact that the EPQ officer, that emergency procedures exam officer, he busted me. But that term we used at that time, he busted me because I left the word, the letter S, listen to me, the letter S off of one of my answers. It was 26 of us, 13 of us in one class, okay? And that same mistake, that error I made by leaving the S off, he put the S on everybody else's paper. The other 13 guys, that's the same exact.
You were talking about the racism that you encountered, and I know that a lot of people probably felt like it wasn't that Black men couldn't fly; it's just the opportunity was not there, and the racism was not encouraging because that was not something that Black men did. But you said your wife encouraged you to do it, gave you the time and the space, the concentration, and the encouragement to go ahead and keep on. Now, I didn't quite understand. You said you left an S off of your paper.
That's correct. But I'm just saying, and that was just, I mean, I just picked that one example. I mean, there were several times that happened, that in the scenario going through pilot training, to me, as a Black, I was only Black in my class. And, it was vividly understood, but that's what happened. So, but that's what I'm saying. I know people was praying for me, my wife, and my parents, But anyway, I'm just saying, but still, God was with me through whatever went down with this EPQ officer, whatever he tried to do. It was not for him to decide that I would not make it through pilot training.
Wow, wow. That gives me chills because I kept hearing that scripture, if God is for you, who can be against you? And from the time you were a little boy, God had called you out of that country field to fly in the air. And so to be the only Black in a classroom of training for something that Black men didn't have or weren't quote unquote allowed the opportunity to do or become, I'm sure was very intimidating for you. And back in that day too, because that was back was it like in the 60s or 50s? What do you remember?
As a matter of fact, my college training year was 1971 through 72, 1971 to 72.
How was your career there? Did you start out do you start off as like a junior pilot or whatever, and then you work your way up? Do you get promotions? How do you promote and escalate your career to the point of retiring when you fly airplanes?
Yes, I will say in the airline aviation business, It's really starts with seniority. When you first get hired, like United Continental had what we call a three-man airplane, which was a
Uh-huh.
727 three-man airplane. Just when you have a captain, a first officer, and a second officer. And I was hired as a second officer, and I flew the second officer position for about at Continental for about 3 years. I was 2 years as a second officer, and then went through bankruptcy, came back and reunited, and I came back and flew first officer for like less than a year, and then I became a captain. So at the end of 4 years, I was blessed to be a captain with Continental Airlines at that time, and then from the last 4 years, the beginning of 4 years up until when I retired, 34 years later, I
Mm-hmm.
ended up being a captain on 777. That's a Boeing 777.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know the one we was on was big. It's three compartments and first class. I mean, it was really a big, it was like a big hotel. It was huge. So and I still don't understand. I mean, I was not really that good in science and all that stuff. And but the how you can get a plane up in the air that big and keep it up in the air for how long did it take to get to Brazil? Was it
Yeah, going to Brazil is about 10, 11 hours going
about
down.
11 hours in the air?
Right.
So I guess the thing I
Oh,
would ask you to have you had any almost moments that that kind of scared you a little bit when you were flying?
yes, I'll mention one with the military and one with as an airline pilot. Flying out of Reese Air Force, no, I'm sorry, Ellington Air Force Base, just south of Houston.
Right.
Flying F-16 fighter jet. And that particular day was not a good day. It only has one engine. And climbing through about 22,000 feet one day, the engine, that one engine that it does have, it quit operating. So here I'm out over the Gulf of Mexico, about 85 miles out, with no engine. And I was at 22,000 feet. But you know what? That's not a time when you start praying. I felt I was already prayed up. So the first thing come to my mind when the engine quit, it wasn't like, that something will happen. It's just I did what I had to do to the procedure to get it started. That one engine that restarted, I had one option out of it. At 2,000 feet, if the engine did not restart, I was supposed to jump out of it, to be ejected from the airplane. But I was blessed going through a little above 2,000 feet. The engine restarted. So I was able to fly that airplane back to Ellington, without jumping out of it.
Wow.
I
That's
knew
so
if
tall.
I had jumped out over the Gulf of Mexico, I was, guess what? I didn't know what the sharks were going to do. You don't have the thoughts, you know. But anyway, that was a successful story, ending story for the military. And the airlines are going to Buffalo, flying into Buffalo on New York one day. The left, not the engine, but the left wheel tire would not come down initially. So, you got to have those rollers when you touch the ground, supposedly. But that particular day, for whatever reason, it didn't work. Basically, so we had to, the co-pilot and I did go through a procedure for emergency to get the left wheel down. It's kind of like it's a procedure the airplane could blow it down, so to speak. And it did. It worked.
Oh
So
my.
that was one military experience and one for the airlines. But
Well, I
thank
tell
God
you
that
what,
was,
I can just sit here and say that I know God was with you on both of those occasions.
yes, it
On the
was.
Gulf of Mexico, God has been with you. And I guess in closing, I'm going to let you have a final tip or something that you would like to give to some young man or some woman whose child is trying to get a career together. But I wanted to just say this because I know you guys personally, and you've been very blessed. You and your wife and your whole family have been very blessed. And one of the things I know about you guys are very giving people, and you believe in giving back to the kingdom. And I know that you guys are tithers. So to whom much is given, much is required. Where did you learn the principle of tithing and giving God back? Because a lot of times when people get money or they feel like they've made it to certain careers, they don't want to tithe. Where did you learn that from?
That's a very good question. As a matter of fact, and this also goes back to my wife. I'm gonna give her credit for that part. The reason is, um, when I left Tuskegee to go to flying school to the United States Air Force at Lubbock, Texas, it's Reese Air Force Base, Lubbock, Texas. There was a time they used to ask for money, like at that time the United Way. Okay, and I remember specifically they it wasn't considered tithing. It was that we had made a donation to United no matter what. We didn't have a choice, you know what I'm saying? We did that. So there was a time when I was at another church before we moved to First Met. Jerry and we had been doing our taxes, and we have been blessed. And I can't boast. If I boast, I have to boast for the Lord, not for Martin. But things for us just wasn't really happening. We thought we had a lot of money going through our hands, but it was just going through our hands, so to speak. And my wife, she had gone to I think it was a mission meeting with Sister Smith at another church, and apparently, for whatever happened, that I guess I call it the intermingle with the women's group and this lady. So Jerry, she got up to the lady. So Jerry came to me and said, Marvin, let's start giving more back to the church. And that's what we did. And and from then on, it was just something you have to do, but not have to. That's supposed to do. That's part of worship, is to give back to God. And don't answer that question, just give it back. Even if you don't have a relationship, or you think there's something wrong going on in administration or politics of the church that goes on, it doesn't matter. Your responsibility is to give to God and let Him work it out with the church, if that's an issue. So that's where I started. Jerry was the one that.
She's a strong woman. I love her. She's a very strong woman, and you need a good, strong woman. They say behind every great man is a great woman, and I really believe that, and I know she is.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I honestly believe, and I know that tithing has saved us many times from calamities and things like that. Um, so we were coming from Hawaii one time and we got out over the Pacific Ocean, and something happened. Smoke started coming in the in the cabin, and they had to turn that thing around and make it back. And I know God, I was canceling every assignment that Satan had on anybody on that plane, and tell them God's man and woman is on this plane. It cannot go down in the Pacific Ocean. But I do know that God has not only He blesses, He promises that He will bless you, and He'll bless your children and your grandchildren. And I know they are blessed too. I know your daughter had a very terrible accident at a young age, and I mean, it was horrific. And she survived it, and she's so beautiful. You couldn't even tell that she was ever in any kind of car wreck like that. So I've just seen that over
Yes.
your life over the years. So did you have any closing tips or suggestions about anybody, man who wants to be successful in life?
Yes, I would. I guess I could kind of like sum it up is that first of all, you have to, at some point in your life, have to realize your relationship with God. I think that's where it starts. But lady, guess what? When I was, well, I guess I was 19 years old, maybe, when I went to pilot training, my relationship with God was not, of course, like it is now, because you grow. Spiritual growth happens over a period of time. So what I'm saying is, I knew that's why I said someone was praying for me. But if it's God's will that for Him to do whatever His plan is for you, that's going to happen no matter what. It'll happen because someone will pray for you. However, I don't know the details of all what's involved, but that happens. Now, for as an individual, like some point, like I said, that's what I want to do for airplanes. So I say all young men, uh, or girls, boys and girls, if you're at that point in your life and stuff you want to do, you still just go ahead and say, put your mind to it and plan to do it. And also, too, it's good to have God in your life. And because when you have Him in life, you just can pray for it. But that's what you want to do, and ask the Holy Spirit. to lead you through it. And he'll put people in your life. It doesn't have to be a wife. It could be a friend, girlfriend. It doesn't matter. Your mother, aunt, someone he'll put in your life that I think leads you down that path. He'll put you in the minds and also to a lot of good people. That's how I think it happens. We don't do it by ourselves. It just doesn't happen that way.
Wow. Well, that's powerful. We don't do it by ourselves. We need each other. And God puts people in your lives. And like you said, it could be your parent, it could be your wife, it could be somebody. But one of the things I think I'm hearing you say too is that you need to listen for the people that God puts in your life and allow them to direct you, even if it's your wife telling you, "Hey, we need to do right by God with this money. We need to do this, about whatever." And so, men, don't be afraid to listen to your wife. They can give some good godly, especially if you got a good wife. She's not there to harm you. She's there to help you. And it's never too late, never too late to turn to God and get it right. So if you haven't done that, and it seems like your money is just going like with through your pocket with holes in it, or things keep coming up, maybe it's because you're not putting God first. When God has blessed you in the way that He's blessed you with such gifts and talents and bring you, as they say, from the outhouse to the White House, but from this thing, from the field to being up in the air flying people all over the world. Oh my goodness, we can't help but give God the glory and to return to Him some portions of what He's given to us. And I know that you all have. So I thank you for sharing with us your life and your career. And I hope and pray that some young boy or girl is listening to you, and that they too, if they have a desire to fly, that they'll be encouraged to get in that class, get in that school, and learn to fly planes or whatever it is. If it looks like it's too difficult, it's a part of your dream that God gave you, then it's there for you if you will do the work and if you will follow the path that He has for you and get wise counsel. So thank you so much, Brother Marv. Y'all have fun. Thank you for he's taking off from his vacation with his grandkids for a minute to come and share with us. So I want you all to be safe and give my love to Jerry and your family. Okay. Help me welcome to Tea Talk today a very wonderful man that I've known for a long time, longer than I want to say, because then I'll start to date myself with age. But it's been a long time, several decades. But anyway, I have really grown to admire him and watch his life through the ups and the downs, the good and the bad. And I know he is a very hardworking man, very strategic man in his planning and what he does. So I thought, what a wonderful person to bring on. He is a husband and a wonderful father too. So would you help me, Tea Talk, welcome Elijah White to Tea Talk. Welcome, Elijah.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, I'm so honored to have you, and I you know how I feel about you, and I wanted Tea Talk to know about you, and I know that you have a story to tell, and a story that's going to help everybody who's watching today. So let's get a little background on you first. I know you're married. You want to tell us about your family?
Yeah, I am married to Dr. Diana Wandix White. Who recently, well, I guess it's been more than recently, now a couple of years ago, got her PhD from Texas A&M and is now working as a clinical professor at Texas A&M San Antonio. So we moved from Houston to San Antonio because, and she says, I have no job now, I'm retired, I have to follow the money. So we're living here in San Antonio. We have four wonderful kids, three girls and one young man. He doesn't like me to call him a boy anymore. He's 23 now and he's the baby. And we have three grandchildren that are aged basically 3 months to 4 years old. And we're loving life.
Wonderful. And I want to just commend you too, because I know you worked for Exxon for how many years is Exxon?
ExxonMobil. I started with Exxon and then, of course, ExxonMobil, and I worked there for 36 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
It
So
long
36 years, and then you were able to retire.
Yes, I was. I was able to retire. You know, I had a plan for retirement all along. And, you know, I had listened to many stories and there's many studies done about people who work too long and they don't get a chance to enjoy it. And I didn't retire at the earliest moment. In fact, at Exxon, you can retire as early as 55, but 60 is considered full retirement. So at 55, I had a free agent party to basically let them put them on notice that it was coming. And then at 60, I'd had my retirement at age 60.
Wonderful. I also want to commend you because after your retirement, I know you were playing lots of golf, but when your wife said, okay, my career now is moving me to San Antonio, you went ahead and honored your wife by moving, uprooting your Houston roots here and moving to San Antonio to support your wife. And I think that's commendable.
That was not even an issue. In fact, we had discussed that many times while she was getting her PhD. And she said, once you retire, if I get a job, are there any restrictions? And I told her, my only restrictions, I don't want to live anywhere where it's too cold, and I'd like for them to have golf courses.
Right. And
So,
speaking of golf, that's what she tells me that you do every day now. Is that
4
true?
days a week, for about 4 days a week. And I'm not sure you would call it golf. I am not a very good golfer, as at least two of your sons can attest to, because they played with me before. But, I love the game. I love the fact that I get out there. I've got bad knees. I can't run. I can't jump anymore. I'm not a very good swimmer, but I can swing a golf club no matter how bad. And it's not always bad. And it's something I didn't start until I was 55 years old. Uh,
Wow.
Diana had actually bought me golf clubs at age 50. I'm sorry, not golf clubs, but golf lessons at age 50, because we started talking about what I was going to do as a hobby once I retired. And I didn't take the golf lessons. And 5 years later, she bought them again and told me not to waste her money again. So I went out and took them and fell in love with it. In fact, she saw the love that I had for it. So she went and took lessons, and now we play together sometimes.
Well, you know what? I think I'm going to do that for me and Pastor because he loves golf. He's a lefty.
Yeah.
My boys love golf, but I usually go and drive the golf cart. I like going up and down and running around and staying out of the sun, but I do hit every once in a while. They let me do it. But listen, the reason why you're
Before
able
you go on, can you please tell Pastor that if he ever feels that he's on the wrong side of the ball, just come play with me and our son, because we're both lefties as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, I will definitely tell him that. And he'll be very comfortable with some other lefties on the field.
Yeah.
But the reason that we're able to talk about you having this fun, and you're still a young man, you're not, I think that the thing that we're talking about today is strategically planning your career so that you can enjoy your retirement. A lot of people work till they drop dead or they're too old to do anything. And so the fact that you're still young enough to do those things and enjoy the fruit of your labor for all these years, 30 something years for Exxon. So tell me the story. Did you come straight out of college? How did you come to, tell us about your career path?
So I did come straight out of college. I went to a historically Black university, Elizabeth City State University, as an undergrad. And it was an interesting story because I hadn't really decided whether college was the right thing for me to do or not. And I remember having a conversation with my mother, and she says, well, why don't you go? If you don't like it, you can always quit. Now, you'd have to know my mother, but there's one thing she knows about me is that I don't quit anything. So if I got there, but I also wanted to play football. And the only way to play football was to go to college. Unfortunately, the football career didn't work out, but everything else did. And I actually had a love for rocks. I grew up in a small town in eastern North Carolina that the only rocks were along the railroad tracks. And as a little boy, I was either on the railroad track throwing rocks or in the woods cutting down trees or something. And I had a love for rocks. And when I went to Elizabeth City, as an incoming freshman, you have no say about your schedule. They give you a schedule when you walk in the door, and they put you in a science class, and it's either going to be geology or biology. And they put me in a geology class, and I fell in love with it. I didn't know that you could actually major in geology until one of the professors came to see me and said I'd taken a couple of classes. He thought I was doing real well and wanted to know had I ever thought about majoring in geology. And I had a look on my face, that's a major?
So what is geology? I'm just used to throwing rocks.
Yeah.
Geology,
so
wow.
I always tell people that was God. God led me to a place that I needed to be. And I have no other explanation for it. And I don't try to find another explanation for it. And so one of the things I found out, one of the professors told me, he said, as a geologist, you can get a job with an oil company paying $1,000 a month. And I said, $1,000 a month, sign me up. Back then that sounded like a whole lot of money. Times have changed a little bit. Times have changed. And then the recruiters started coming in from Exxon, And I remember my first year, they interviewed me, but they told me I did not have enough experience, but if I kept my grades up, they'd come back and see me the next year. Of course, I didn't believe them, but sure enough, they showed up again and they offered me a summer internship. Now, I had 2 summer internships before that, and that's one of the keys to me is getting as much experience as you can. I did my first summer at Mammoth Cave National Park and my second summer at the Woods Holes National Oceanographic Institute. And then 3 summers with Exxon, 2 while I was still in undergrad at Elizabeth City, and then 1 while I was in graduate school at the University of North Carolina. And
Wow. So summer interns are important. Don't waste your time getting rest, playing off, going to the nightclub, letting your hair down. In the summer times, you need to be either going to school, but internship with a major company really sounds like it paid off for you getting this lucrative 35-year career at Exxon.
It did. And in fact, at Exxon, at least at that time, I would say probably about 95% of their employees came through their internship programs. And I think there are many companies like that because, it's an easy way for them to evaluate talent over a short period of time. And, like I said, I worked 3 summers. The interesting thing, though, was when I graduated and was ready to find a job, nobody was hiring because we were going through one of those lulls in the oil and gas business. Nobody was hiring, and I got 4 job offers. And 3 of the offers came
That's
from
the
companies.
favor of God, the favor of God.
3 of the companies came at me because they looked on my resume and saw that I had worked for Exxon for 3 summers. They wanted to hire me. And then Exxon called and says, well, when are you going to come interview with us? And I said, well, you haven't asked me. And I went down and they made me an offer. And they actually made me the lowest offer, but that's the one I took. And I tell that's one of my life.
That's key too. So you don't always take the biggest offer. You're looking at your career path. So why did you choose Exxon, the lowest offer?
It was a simple one. I am all about people. The 3 summers that I worked there, I fell in love with the people that I worked with. And I think they had my back, if you will. And there was just a comfort factor, like I was going to work with family. And that was more important to me at the time. Now, to be honest, the difference in salaries was not humongous, but it was somewhat significant. But at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, a starting salary is nothing but a starting salary. And don't make career choices based on the starting salary.
Exactly. So relationships are really important before you actually get the job, and it helped you get the job. And then you chose that because of that. And I'm sure once you got your starting salary, they did increase you.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, so because you stayed. Because I know one of the things that a lot of these corporations play, especially oil and gas, they try to steal the good employees from the other companies. So there's a little competition going on there. So I'm sure they felt like if you're valuable, they want to keep you, they are going to increase your salary. So why do you think that they increased your salary and they kept you all these years?
Well, ExxonMobil has a simpler formula. It's called performance. They pay for performance. And people who perform well get paid well and they get promoted. Now, there's a lot of discussions that we can get into about how you're actually, how people rate your performance, because that is a very sore subject. But in terms of, it is simply that they pay for performance.
Right. So let me ask you this too, because I have had some young people on a job and they, get upset with the boss or the supervisor or something they said, and they just walk off, or they just have a bad attitude and they stop working. They stop, they kind of get sore, kind of salty there and want to talk rude to their employer and so forth. Tell me about your work ethics. What kind of advice can you give to young people who are, some of them are a little hot-headed and they're not committed and they don't know etiquette for dealing with difficult supervisors. So I'm sure you've had one over these years.
I have, very seldom, and people don't realize this, very seldom does an immediate supervisor really have any control over your career. They can give advice to others who are really making those decisions. They can do a lot of different things. And I'll give you an example. When I first started, because I came in with summer experience, but because I had a master's and not a PhD, and I started in a research company, they started me at a lower level and a lower salary than they did the people who had PhDs. But they also told me that in 1 year they would promote me, and so there would be nothing to worry about. And so I worked for that year. No promotion came. I did get significant raises, but no promotion. And then after 18 months, I finally said, well, let me go talk to my supervisor to find out what's going on. And my simple question to him was, is there something wrong? I said, you promised me a promotion in 12 months. I didn't get it. It's been 18 months now. So if there's something I need to do to improve my performance, and he looked at me and he said, young man, he says, there's not that many promotions to be had, so don't rush it. So what I took away from that was I don't have much of a career at ExxonMobil or at Exxon at the time. And this guy just told me that to my face. He also told me I would be a middle of the road employee and just enjoy life. And what I will tell you is 2 weeks later, I got a promotion. And when he called me in, he handed me the piece of paper and he said to me, I'm surprised. And
Wow.
so, and I told people from that point, I never asked for another promotion. I never asked for another raise. For two reasons. Number one is because I realized that I got that because of my performance. He was surprised. That means he had nothing to do with it. So that was the first clue to me about, first line supervisors. But the other story is, I could have gotten upset. I could have walked away. But that guy, he wasn't a bad guy. I just didn't think he was a very good supervisor. But when he retired, he worked for me.
Get out of here.
And so,
Whoa.
don't let one person there's a book out there about who stole my cheese. You don't steal my cheese.
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
let that one person control you. You need to be in control of it. Now, we do have to have our eyes wide open and we have to look at the culture of the companies that we're working for, because sometimes we are in companies that are not, quote unquote, for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not have anything to do with the color of our skin. It may have many things to do with it. But I tell people, you need to make decisions about your life, but you need to make informed decisions. But you can't run every time something doesn't go your way.
Wow. Say that again.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, because I think that's one of the biggest problems that I see with young people, mistakes that they make.
Yeah.
When something doesn't go their way, they get all depressed, they get down, they start acting like children,
Yeah.
pouting, sulking. I'm not going to come back to my break on time. I'm not going to do this. Talk about those little things that they may think of as, oh, I don't have to do this or whatever.
Yeah.
Those
So
little things make a difference, don't they?
they do make a difference. And I've got many examples of where people are offered opportunities, but in their mind, they've already got a game plan. And this opportunity does not jive with that game plan, and they don't want to do it, and they turn it down. What they don't realize is, we learn from every opportunity we get. No matter what the exposure, we're going to learn something out of it. And what we may learn is, this is not something I want to do. But the earlier you learn that, also the better. And I see people turn down too many opportunities that would have been their golden ticket to the upper room, if you will.
Wow.
But we don't always know that, because most companies always have what I call an employee development plan. And particularly for those people that they think have, senior executive potential, they're going to develop plans for them, and they're going to give them some. They used to call it throwing them into the frying pan, or throwing them into the deep water to see if they can swim. They
Swim.
don't do that as much anymore. They will still throw you in there, but they also give you either a life vest or a fire extinguisher when they throw you in there, because they want you to succeed, but they don't always tell you that. And people look at those opportunities. I don't want to do this, and sometimes it's traveling. It's amazing to me how many young people go into a career saying, I want to do this job because I want to travel the world. And the first time they're offered that opportunity to do that, they shy away from it because it's something new to them. Unfortunately for me, I never got a chance to live overseas, but I did live on airplanes for a while. I was traveling all the time. Like, somebody asked me at one point, had I traveled much? I said, no, not really. I've only been out of the country 6 times in the last 6 weeks. Uh, but I did get to see the world. I got to, see many different cultures. If you don't mind me going back, I'll go all the way back to when I was an undergrad. I mentioned I had a job at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, and they wanted me to go to Spain. Now, when I went from North Carolina to Massachusetts to take that job, I took a Trailways bus. I don't even think they have Trailways anymore.
You rode on the bus? They asked you to ride on the bus and you got on that bus, huh?
I got on that bus and went up. No, they didn't ask me. I took that bus up there, and I had my round trip bus ticket to come back. And then while I was there, they asked me to go to Spain, and I told them no. And I called my mama that night, and I said, I was a mama's boy, I still am. And I said, Mom, I said, those crazy people want me to get on an airplane, and they want me to, go over to Spain. I said, I'm not doing it. She said, boy, you may never get a chance to go again. You better do it.
Yeah.
And so the next day I went back and I said, well, I would go, but I don't have a passport. They said, we can get your passport. They got me a passport. I think it was 6 days. They got me a passport.
Wow.
And so I got on that plane. I went to Spain. And when I got back to Massachusetts, I tore up my bus ticket and I caught me a plane back to North Carolina.
Once you flew, you said, "Hey, I'm not getting on that bus
I
anymore."
got to do it again. And there was no disrespect to the bus, but
No, but
I just
it's
thought the
much
plane was the way to
better.
go. But
So
again, it was
what's the,
one of those things I was going to turn down that opportunity because it was all new to me. The other thing too is when I got over there, I went on a ship. I'd never been on a boat before.
whoa,
So it was
that
just
one trip.
that one trip, all these new things that just opened up my eyes to the possibilities of the world.
Wow.
And our people need to be willing to try new things. And sometimes it's going to be, it may be that job that you feel like it's a job nobody else wants to do. But the fact that you're willing to do it is going to open some people's eyes, and it's going to open opportunities for you.
Oh, I love that. Let me go back because I got to go back to Mama.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I got lots of stories about Mama.
Because Mama said, "Boy, you better get on that plane. You may not get this opportunity again." And I think that's one of the big things that really hurts my heart today is a lot of young people do not want to take the advice of their parents or people who are mature, who've been there. And that's why I have you on today, because I think we could learn and stop making a lot of mistakes if we would learn from our elders, if we would respect them and ask them for their advice. And I know as mothers, our hearts ache sometimes when we try to tell our children, "Hey, son, do this, don't do that," and they do what they want to do. So, talk about respect for mother and advice that your mother gave you that you may remember, if there's any more than that. And then just elders in general. Did you have any mentors or people that you looked up to who could speak into your life and say, "Son, that's the wrong way"?
Yeah. So, it's unfortunately, I grew up in a single, parent household. My father was around town, but he was not around. He was really not a part of my life.
Right.
And so I was really raised by my mother and my grandmother. My mother probably lived in three different houses. And she lived in a lot more houses than that. But at this one time when I was a young man, and in all three houses that she lived in, I could look out the back door and I could see my grandmother's house, because
Wow.
we lived in a project and it was a block and we kind of moved around. And so I actually lived with my grandmother. I moved in with her when my grandfather died and stayed with her till I was 13. So my mother and my grandmother raised me, and my grandmother had me in church twice a week. I might be asleep, but I was in there. And so it was interesting that, mom was the one. And I can't tell you all the stories about mom, particularly like a few times that I got in trouble in school. And when I say in trouble, uh, I thought the principal was being unfair to my brother, and I got in the principal's face and I had a conversation with him. So he sent me home and told me not to come back until I brought my mother with me. My mother just sent a message by me, and the principal left me alone because they kind of had a respect for her. And she was a godly woman. And it was interesting when I came to work for Exxon. I remember telling my mom, there's something that just wasn't right. And, I couldn't put my fingers on it. She said, "Well, boy, what's going on?" I said, "Well, Mom, I've been going to churches. I don't know what's going on." She said, "You know what?" She said, "You have not been baptized as an adult. So I think you need to get baptized again." And again, I'm a grown man. So she picked me up from the airport at Christmas, and I told her, I said, "You know what? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to the pastor. And when I come back home in the summertime, I think I'll get baptized." And she said, "Okay." So she drove me from the airport and she took me straight to a church. It wasn't our church, but it was a church. Now it's in December, so it's very cold outside. And I said, "What's going on?" She said, "Come on in here." So we went into church, and I saw our pastor and a couple of deacons standing there in their white robes. And I said, "What's going on?" She said, "You're about to get baptized." I said, "But Mom, I haven't had the right hand of fellowship yet." She said, "You can get that tomorrow." This is on a Saturday. So they actually baptized, and the next day at church, I got the right hand of fellowship. And then we get back to I get back to Houston, and she called me and she said, "Well, how things going now?" I said, Mom, I just don't understand." And she said, "Well, boy, are you tithing?" And I said, "No." She said, "Well, you need to start tithing." And this is a true story. I don't remember how much the check was, but I wrote a check and I put in the mail to mail to her. And I did that for quite some time, to mail her checks so that she could pay my tithes for me. And I mailed that check. I'm going to say it was on a Monday. That next Monday I go in. So now the church gets my check for that Sunday. The next Monday I go in, and my boss handed me a piece of paper. He said, "You just got a raise." And I looked at it. It was funny because if I looked at what I was tithing, and if I added up what it was going to be for a year, it was probably 5 times what I was tithing. And I just kind of looked, and I got scared, to be quite honest, Lady O. Like, hey, there's something to this tithing stuff. So I still tithe today, not just for that reason, but I am a believer that God looks out for us, and it was meant for me to do that. But
Yeah.
you asked me about my mother. Those were all steps that my mother put in place for me to show me that, God takes care of his own. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just
Yeah.
kind of the woman she's always been. She's opened the door for us, and all her children didn't walk the same walk of life, but I guarantee you, she loves them all the same.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. And they all took, she gave them what they needed, and it's up to them to do something with it,
Yeah,
whatever, but she loves them in spite of whatever they
yeah,
did. So I get it. That's what all of us mothers do, because no child is the same. But I wanted to just, and thank you for so much for sharing that about the giving aspect of it, because in all that we do in my career and all my kids' career, I always tell them that God is the orchestrator. If you listen to him, he's going to guide you.
yeah,
But one of the other things that happens a lot of times when people get into really great careers, that they rob God. They give God maybe $100 when their tithe may be $500 or even $5,000.
yeah,
So I'm with you there. I know that I'm blessed because I tithe. I'm blessed because I give back a portion of what God has given to me, and I see all of these things as steps that God has, doors that God has opened that
yeah,
I couldn't open in there. And you're right. You'll just come into blessings and you don't even you didn't ask for them, but God just said, "Hey, here's something for your obedience." So your mom is a
yeah,
very wise person, and making sure that you're baptized, you're in the church, that you know how to tithe, and that to me is a very successful person. And God has blessed you in so many ways. And I know you have. I'm going to say this too. You have a blended family,
we do.
because I wanted to say that because I knew you before you were married to this young lady, and I've known you after, and I know both of the kids, and I think that no family is perfect, but I know that you guys have worked very well at being a blended family. Now you have grandchildren, so the struggles will come
We will.
in marriage and career. Can you talk about any of the struggles that you may have had where maybe you wanted to quit or you thought you wanted to go another way?
Yeah. Now, are we talking about family or are we talking about work?
Well, yeah, I was about to go off on that family one. I was like, I don't know if he wants to go in that area, but you feel free to share, because what we're here about is trying to help people who are watching. So we are very transparent and we're very relational.
Right.
So whatever you feel that God is leading you to share that would help other people as a blended family, as a career, you share that.
But I'll talk about both. But I'll finish up on the mama advice and how I came into First Med as well. And I don't know if Pastor will remember this, but it was I want to say it was during a one of the Christmas services they had,
Uh-huh.
and I remember going up to Pastor and said, I want to join this church. And the last time I did it, I came through the back door, talking about when my mom brought me in on that Saturday thing. This time I want to come in the front door.
Right, right.
And so, the church has obviously been a blessing to me. At that time, I was divorced, and I had custody of my two daughters. And I think we even came to see you one time as a counselor, Lady O, just because, it was a
Yeah,
struggle.
I remember that. I remember you asked me about doing the hair, the girl's hair and
Yeah.
everything.
And,
Yeah,
I had so many blessings when I came that there was just so many angels in my life, from, to the point that I mentioned, I was traveling all the time to being blessed with absolutely wonderful ladies who were nannies who could look after the girls when I was there. And I made sure that they knew that I did not need them to replace me as a parent, just to be there when I couldn't be there. And I had two ladies during that time that were just absolutely wonderful. And then I was blessed with a young lady, we mentioned Dr. Diana White, who you actually introduced us. And when we first started dating, we talked for quite a while before we actually met, and actually became friends over the telephone before we even really met in person, even though I had seen her, so I knew she was a beautiful woman. Uh,
yeah. Mhm.
and when we decided to get married, we talked a lot about the blended family, and we knew that there would be some struggles, and there have been struggles because I really believe we are both really, really good parents. But we do have somewhat different parenting styles. Nothing that really, contradicts each
Right.
other, but they're just very different. And so it was kind of respecting the boundaries that we had both set, and then figuring out how to blend those boundaries in there. And then I'll tell you one interesting story. So, we have three girls. Two of the girls are about the same age, and we were trying to really force them into this great relationship.
Right.
and they just didn't seem to be getting there, And every once in a while, I look for them. Every kid be in their own room, and then I look for the two that are the same age, and sometimes they'd be laying on the bed together, reading the magazine or doing whatever. But I just thought they were distance, and so Jasmine, who was my natural child, I went to her and I got on her and I said, look, I really don't like the way you're treating Sydney. She's your sister now. You're going to have to do better. You're going to have to do. And she looked at me, she started crying. And I said, why are you crying? She said, Daddy, I treat her just like I treat Reagan. What more do you want? And I realized that because she did. She treated her just like she did her real sister. Sometimes they were just tight as they come. Sometimes they were separate. And I think Diana and I decided, you know what, we just need to back up and let them be who they are. And I think that was a life lesson for us, just kind of stepping out of the way and letting them do things. And not again that it's perfect, but we wanted them to be just best buds all the time. And they were sisters. And I don't know, you have sisters, right?
I do. I have sisters, and I'm sure they were doing what sisters do. And just like sisters and brothers, we fight, we feud,
yeah,
but we're still sisters in the end. So, but I think that the other thing too, and I'm gonna have to bring this to a close. It's been so wonderful, but I know that you have one son who's a little man now, young man, and he's always a handsome little old thing. Now I'm sure he's a handsome big old thing, getting ready to probably get married. But I'm sure that if it has not happened, that it will happen, that he will come to you as a man and thank you for the role model that you have put in the house, because you are the male role model, as I know his father is deceased and passed away when he was very young. So how is that relationship with the man?
Yeah. It's interesting because I think early on he and I had a interesting relationship. It was our main way. Men bond differently than women.
Yeah,
and, as a young boy, he and I used to wrestle all the time. Sometimes I walked through the door and he would jump on my back, and try to scare me or whatever type deal. And that was kind of how we bonded. How we bond now is we play golf. In fact, he beat me the other day in golf, and that's all he wants to talk about. So I think that's most of our bonding now. He's still, he like I was a mama's boy, he's a mama's boy. So mama is really important in his life, and he will still go to mama first on almost everything. And I have no issues with that because I understand that relationship. But we get a chance, like I said, we spend at least 2 days on the golf course. Normally we spend, so we get a lot of time to chat and do things. And in fact, he needs your prayers this morning. He's on his way to take his certification for EMT training this morning. And he just finished the fire academy, so we need prayers for him.
I would definitely be praying. Well, that's all we have for today. It's been a wonderful show. I hope that you will share this information with someone else, some woman, some young boy or girl who needs to be inspired by someone that looks like them, someone who started from nothing and God brought them to a marvelous place, even to the point that now my guests are retired and doing well. But you saw what it took. It took hard work and their faith in God and a good family. So make sure you marry the person that God tells you to marry, and that you get hooked up with the people that God has ordained for you to get hooked, because bad crowd can destroy the plan that God has for you. So don't let him destroy it. God has great things in store for you. And I am so honored to be able to honor these Black men and put them in a light to show you that our Black men are marvelous. They're doing a wonderful job in their fathers, and they're in the church and their careers. And we just want to honor them today. So listen, that's all for now. So thank you for joining Tea Talk. I will see you next Sunday at 3 for Tea with Lady O. I'm out.